Starmer's U-turn on the winter fuel payment might improve the Prime Minister's polling, but it's bad news for Chancellor Rachel Reeves, who announced the cuts just 10 months ago. She's reportedly under increasing pressure from backbench Labour MPs, with many now questioning her political judgment. They should have done that a while ago, but we're catching up. That's good. That also might be why an interesting story made it into the papers today. A secret memo leaked to the Telegraph reveals that Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner asked the Chancellor to consider tax rises on the country's richest rather than welfare cuts before the spring statement back in April. Rayner's suggestions included a tax rise for the million people who pay the higher rate of income tax, as well as a higher corporation tax on banks. None of those made it into the spring statement, with Reeves instead choosing to cut personal independent payments and other incapacity benefits instead. A spending review next month is also likely to see further deep cuts to departmental budgets. All of that is making some Labour MPs uncomfortable. Now, what the leaking of the memo shows is a split in the government's front bench when it comes to economic policy, with Rayner, of course, laying out a more left-wing position in oppositions to Reeves's, I suppose, more Austerian approach. That's got some political commentators theorising. So the iPaper's chief political commentator, Kitty Donaldson, has argued that the leaked memo shows Rayner has her eye on the leadership. That's an interesting theory, and it's one that Labour MP Diane Abbott seemed to support on Good Morning Britain with this pretty shady intervention.
Do you think that he will be Prime Minister at the time of the next general election?
I hope so.
But do you think he will be?
I hope so.
Do you think there is a better person within the Labour front bench, or indeed the party, to be Prime Minister than Keir Starmer at the moment?
Well, there are other people. Angela Rayner's in the papers today.
She seemed a lot more enthusiastic when she answered the third question than when she was asked the first two. Helena, I suppose in a way this sort of links back to what we've been discussing on plenty of shows recently, which is that, everyone seems to be waking up to the fact that Keir Starmer's a bit of a dud. And given that, sort of discussions about who could replace him are in a way surprisingly undeveloped. There isn't that much speculation I've seen in the press or in sort of the political commentariat about if Keir Starmer is toppled, who would sort of stand in his wake. Do you think this today is sort of Angela Rayner making a pitch? The assumption is that it's people around her who've leaked these papers. It could be, obviously that's not confirmed, but that seems to be the assumption of the commentary I've seen. And the suggestion is she's leaked this to the newspaper because when there is a leadership election, people will say, well, I don't want to vote for anyone who's implicated in the winter fuel payment cut because that was electorally damaging and also sort of I don't agree with it morally. And she wants to get out ahead of this and say, well, I was against it to begin with. Do you think she's angling for leader? Could you see that happening? Obviously there'll be lots of left-wing people that have left the Labour Party already. Wes Streeting will be hoping that all of them has left and everyone left in the Labour Party is to the right of Tony Blair. But it'll be interesting to see. How do you see this sort of playing out?
Well, I don't think that Keir Starmer is lasting to the next election at all. I think his time is basically already over. I think he's already a lame duck prime minister, which is insane to say 10 months since the last general election. But I do think that he's on his way out. I think that when you look at the opinion polls of him specifically, people hate him. And I think also what's important is that internally within the party, he's not popular. And I think that even in the PLP, even if they like him personally or think that keeping somebody who doesn't like the left at the top of the party is within their interest, I think a lot of them are also cottoning on to the fact that having somebody who is essentially being entirely in hock with Morgan McSweeney's kind of master plan for their time in government hasn't worked for them and is only making them even more unpopular. I think there was that quote, somebody saying, well, they says go further and faster, but it's the things that we're already doing that people hate. I think we're seeing more and more that the PLP themselves, who've been specifically selected for loyalty, by the way, by the PLP in the run-up to the election, by the McSweeney Politburo, in the run-up to the election, if these people are already speaking to the press and saying, doesn't look like it's working, then I feel like this time is up. And basically when the entire McSweeney strategy was just, well, let's just lie to everybody and hope nobody notices, I really don't think that is going to give Keir Starmer any kind of staying power. People don't like liars. They turfed at Boris Johnson. And I believe we'll see something similar with Keir Starmer eventually. They'll probably have him be the fall guy for all of the bad things that people perceive the government to have done up until now. And then they'll go for some kind of leadership election, maybe changing some rules to ensure that a left-winger is less likely to win. But I think that the PLP will eventually find a way of twisting the twisting the screws to ensure that there is at least some change at the top of the party. Because whatever they're doing now, when they've got like minus 50% government approval rating, clearly it isn't working. Now, when it comes to Angela Rayner, I think absolutely she's angling at the leadership. Remember it from Get In? I believe it was from Get In by Gabriel Pogrund and Patrick McGuire. They specifically pointed out that there was already a plan after the Hartlepool by-election in 2021, I believe it was, for Angela Rayner to try and kind of coup Keir Starmer at the top of the party. She's already had leadership ambitions before, if these stories are to be believed. She had backings of loads of groups internally within the Labour Party, backings of multiple trade unions were on side as well. She is not somebody who is kind of only thinking about these things theoretically. There is already an organised group of people behind her in the party who would immediately support a leadership spill, if there was one, for Angela Rayner against Keir Starmer. And when it comes to people like Wes Streeting, it was a really great clip from the newsagents and Lewis Goodall saying, well, actually, when you think about it, Wes Streeting isn't very popular amongst Labour members, actually, despite the fact the media love him. And I'm like, yeah, of course he isn't. No one likes Wes Streeting. And so the membership, even the ones who are left, after all the expulsions, after all of the exile, after all of the door is open that you can leave, the membership that are left, they still like Ed Miliband, they still like Angela Rayner, they still don't like people like Wes Streeting, and Rachel Reeves is one of the, and Liz Kendall as well, are some of the most hated people as far as the membership are concerned. And outside of this, when it comes to the broader scale of whether or not Labour could be electorally successful under Angela Rayner, given that a lot of the people who are leaving the Labour voting cohort in terms of how they're being polled are leaving to parties who they perceive to be more on the liberal end of the political spectrum. These people are also, when polled, show that their most favoured politician is Angela Rayner as well. So she's not just popular when it comes to the Labour membership, which is obviously very self-selecting, but when it comes to the people who voted for the Labour Party in 2024, if they wanted to bring these people back into the fold, Angela Rayner is the number one candidate who they believe would win their votes back as well. So I think that if you're a Labour Party strategist who's not in hock with the Politburo, then I think you'd be wise in backing Angela Rayner. Personally, I think that I voted for her for deputy leader, and I think her time has basically ruined her connection with the left wing of politics. But her connections to the trade unions is what's important, because they're the people who have like their power within the party up against the PLP, which members just kind of don't have. So could we see an Angela Rayner prime minister? I mean, at the very least, if we do, we'll have somebody who's actually come from a proper working class background, no son of a toolmaker. She's walked the walk and talked the talk being a carer, and that can only be a good thing. Having a woman being prime minister from a Labour Party background, from a trade union background, even if I dislike her personally and her political trajectory.